Welcome to Your Next Bold Move. Our show is all about helping you take your next step, whether it's career or relationships or life in general. Hi, and welcome to Your Next Bold Move. My name is Wendy Capland. Today's show is focused on increasing your professional impact and influence while mastering the art of high-stakes conversations, Part 2. And my guest today again is Michele Gravelle. Michele is a corporate trainer who works for me in my consulting company, Vision Quest Consulting, and she has developed and delivered training programs for corporations and their leaders for many years. Welcome back.
Thanks, Wendy. Great to be back.
So let us review.
Yes, so last month we were looking at your ongoing conversation with Bob, your marketing PR consultant.
Yes.
And we were using the conversation where he had been encouraging you to do more social media and you were hesitant and were pushing back a little bit. So we took a look at the conversation where you felt like he was really pushing you and you weren't liking that so much. And so we, what we say, diagnosed the conversation. We looked at what actually happened in the conversation, and then we took a little bit of a look at what was going on in your head. And what we found was you were feeling pretty frustrated. You felt like it was inappropriate for him to be so aggressive and pushy. Yep. All of this is what was going on inside of you. You were thinking and feeling it, but not saying it in the conversation. But then we took a look to see, actually it probably did leak a little bit into the conversation. So what we want to do today is to begin to take a deeper dive here. The first tool that we're going to introduce today is what we call the ladder of inference. It probably is the single most effective way to look at both sides of a conversation, right? So everybody has an internal ladder. It's kind of a mental metaphor for how we jump to conclusions, right? So for managers out there who are watching this show, they may have a direct report that they need to give feedback to. Right. Their direct report does something and you say, oh, that was really disrespectful, right? So how do we go from observing a behavior or hearing a tone of voice or seeing a document, and boom, we make up a story about it. Where does all that stuff come from? This is a way for us to say, all right, so let me step back and see what I'm doing and then put myself in the other person's shoes and see what they might be doing. Good. The thing that you want to fill in here on the bottom are the facts. Just like in a swimming pool, you would need a ladder to climb up out of the facts. Right. So what happens is we notice the facts, and then as we climb out of the pool, we begin to spin the facts, right? And they become something else. Right. As you begin to think about having another conversation with him, so we're going to use this as a preparation for that conversation. Good. What are the facts? I mean, there's probably many, but just give me one or two facts.
I've blogged based on his advice and counsel.
And what's another fact?
How many times I've posted on Facebook and tweeted.
Okay. So you look at the money that you've spent, you look at the time you've spent, and what does that mean to you?
I'm getting actually more aggravated just even listing them.
As you begin to interpret these, what are you telling yourself about Bob? Do you have any story in your head about Bob?
Well, he's a professional. So on one hand, and I've hired him because I think he knows something that I don't, and that's why I hired him. So on one hand, I do believe him.
Yep, okay.
I'm just not seeing the results.
Yeah.
So I'm, I don't know, questioning.
Yeah, okay. And so your big conclusion, right? You've looked at the data, you've drawn some inferences and interpretations, and now you're going to go talk to Bob again on Monday. And your message to Bob is what? Bob, I'd like you, or I need you to what?
Either convince me that this is the way to go, or I've got to go back to what I know works.
Okay. So most of the time, for many people, they do some version of this, right? They get all hot and bothered. I've spent all this money, I've spent all this time, and he needs to show me the value. So what we want to do is, give Bob the benefit of the doubt and put ourselves in Bob's shoes as best we can.
Okay.
So what is Bob looking at? Does he have access to the same information?
He does.
Okay. And would he be looking at anything else?
He might be looking at new visitors onto my website as a result of this, which is the point.
So he's looking at this stuff and he's thinking about Wendy, and when he looks at the new visitor numbers hits to your website and he looks at other comparable businesses at this point in their social media life.
Here's what he's going to say. Yeah. Are you going there? Here's what he's going to say.
Okay,
he's going to say, this is great.
All right, great. So when he gets to thinking about his conversation with you on Monday, what's he going to say to you? What's his
Congratulations!
Woohoo!
Good
Right?
job.
Good job. And I got to tell you, this is almost always how it maps out. Right? Again, going back to the manager direct report feedback scenario, generally the manager feels like the direct report is not doing such a great job, and often the direct report says, woohoo, I'm doing a great job, right? And so there's this gap in performance expectation, and that creates
perception.
A big problem, right? Okay, so now, just for a little fun, right? Imagine that you didn't have this preparation and that you weren't already as skilled as you are. So many times, somebody, maybe not you, goes into the conversation and they might start the conversation by saying,
show me why I need to keep doing this. It's not working.
This is not working. So many times, and I'm going to go out on a limb 100% of the time, when conversations are difficult, they are difficult because we are having them up here at the level of conclusion. Right? So we're sharing opinion, point of view. And it sounds like this. I'm right. No, I'm right. We sound like little kids fighting over the last toy in the sandbox. And so the value of taking a look at our conversations like this is, first of all, it helps us to realize, okay, so I'm swinging off the top rung of my ladder up here. Let me get back down here to the bottom and talk about the facts. Right, so talking about the facts does a lot of things. First of all, it de-escalates it, right? Gets it out of the world of kind of make-believe and bias and strong opinions. People generally don't disagree about the facts. They disagree about how they interpret the facts, right? And many times in conversations, what people share and believe they're sharing the facts are actually their interpretations, their biases, their opinions. So when a manager tells a direct report, I think you're being unproductive or you're being disrespectful. And so that's why people get defensive in these tough conversations, because the person sharing with them is just sharing opinions. When you share facts, you build your credibility, and it's easier for the other person to hear because your message is not being layered with judgment and opinion. How might this help you to approach your conversation with Bob a little differently on Monday?
Well, I could imagine now saying, I feel like I've been doing all the things you told me to do, and here's what I've done specifically.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling slightly frustrated because I don't think I'm getting results. And maybe I just don't understand what kind of results come after 3 months.
Yeah.
So if you could help me sort of weave my way through that and help me understand it better, that might help.
Because if we go back to our conversation, when you say, Bob, I'm just not sure, and it feels like you're pushing me, it's a piece, but it's a small piece. And so sometimes being a little bit more transparent about what's really going on for you gives them more information, and then they can sort of be lower on their ladder. What generally is happening over here are 4 things. There's judgment, strong feelings, right, wrong, and what we call identity. And identity really is just simply when we feel like there's something in what the other person is saying that's causing us to doubt ourselves. Right? They see us differently than we see ourselves. Again, going back to how might we be more skillful in the conversation. If we know that what's over here is strong judgment and right, wrong, like, all right, well, let's then take a look at not cleaning this up, right?
Because it is what it is.
It is what it is, right? We can't sanitize it, but we can shift our thinking to be more effective. So instead of having, what an idiot and it's inappropriate, instead of having those thoughts, what are some different thoughts, maybe more effective thoughts?
I do think he's skilled.
Okay, great.
Or I wouldn't have hired him.
You bet. Okay, that's great. To improve the conversation, we're going to start with having a more neutral inner voice is going to drive a more neutral conversation.
So thanks for joining us today. And in addition to the resources and ideas shared with us by Michele, you can go online to both of our websites and join our communities for additional free support and inspiration. Again, we can be found at visionquestconsulting.com and themagicparties.com. A big thank you again to our guest Michele Gravelle for coming back again. And thanks to you, our listeners. You are meant to go forth in the world and use your gifts and talents.